Good morning. Putting the record straight. You know, coming to Southeast Asia will encompass many things. And one of the biggest things that we as Westerners will be confronted with is the desperation and poverty here and in other countries of Southeast Asia. Now, it's not for me to tell you how you should be living your life, of course. It's also not for me to be suggesting that you're this or that. But some of you missed the point, I believe. You know, it's important that whilst we have the resources to make a difference in our own lives, when I say make a difference, to live in a way that we're used to, or pretty close to what we're used to. And that's the point. When we live our lives, hopefully, we live them in a certain amount of anonymity. In other words, we don't have to broadcast to the rest of the world how wealthy we really are. They already think that because we're millionaires in their minds, that's what we are. But as you well know, those that live in Australia or New Zealand that come here, compared to maybe those who've come from America, live under a completely different regime of regulations, opportunities to have a long-lasting, regular pension from their different prospective governments. And therefore the amount of money that both of us have as a group is wide and varied. Americans seem to not recognize often that they are very fortunate in the sense that a lot of the restrictions that are placed upon Australians and New Zealanders, and of course British people, don't apply to them. Therefore, when we look at what they can retire on legally, what they're able to claim legally, we often are not allowed or not able to do so. We even have limitations on what we're able to earn as additional income, even within Australia or New Zealand and England. There's a ceiling that we are allowed to earn. In other words, we could be prosperous in our old age because maybe we've had inheritances, maybe we've had long-term insurance plans that have a termination point, maybe when we retire, and give us a lump sum or maybe even an additional amount per week. We might have signed up for those things earlier on in our working lives, but we're unaware that now that we have retired, a lot of what we thought we were going to have is now means tested. In other words, because we now are earning additional income to our old age pension, which is by right given to us by our government. Anything else that we earn is subject to either almost 100% tax. So therefore it becomes rather meaningless in having them. We call them superannuation plans in many countries. But back to my meaning for my video this morning, or my thought for the day, is that if you have 5,000 as an amount of money multiplied by the current rate of exchange, let's just say 60, just to make it easy, that's 300,000 pesos a month. Now, in anybody's thought patterns, 300,000 to live a good life in the Philippines? Why would you even be worried about a single penny you spend? Well, the answer is because you choose to replicate your lifestyle, maybe even top up your kind of lifestyle that you had back in your own country in America. This isn't envy, it isn't jealousy when I talk about it, it's a fact. For some Americans, of course, they're more frugal and they're more appreciative of the value of what they've got. And they tend to be very quietly living their lives out of the spotlight of those in YouTube land. But there, of course, are those that have benefited by maybe doing military service and claim a disability. But as we all know, disabilities are disabilities are disabilities. Sometimes they're not seen, sometimes they're not known to others. But to those that claim it, they are the only ones who know their true disability. Point in case is that of a gentleman called Tim Kay, made himself well known here in YouTube land in the Philippines. I understand he's sold his channel. I'm not quite sure why he would do that, but maybe for monetary reasons. And what's the benefit to somebody who buys his channel if it's not Tim Kay himself? But he claimed that he had a disability, a back injury, which clearly he complained about on numerous occasions in his own videos. And he claimed that he was a disability pensioner. Therefore, for him to go around attempting to do surfing, even if I believe showing him doing a bit of surfing, which naturally he had enjoyed through his life, and why stop just because he gets a bit older? But we also know that disabilities come and disabilities go and disabilities remain, especially with backs. You can often, a doctor will say if you don't move it, it will become seized up. If you don't attempt to get that exercise, in a way, a therapy. So maybe that was the reason why he proceeded to carry on, maybe hoping that by doing something he loved, he was able to lessen the chance. But like in Australia, my partner previously used to claim that she injured her back at work, and there's no doubt she did used to have to lift pretty heavy weights. But she and I both know she injured it one day playing tennis. She put it out, and it was a major event in her life. She was in bed for maybe over a week and a half, unable to really get any kind of comfort. But she claimed that she'd injured herself at work. And that's the whole point. A lot of people claim that they've injured themselves with the intention of gaining some kind of benefit. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that everybody is over here trying to do the same, whether from America or anywhere. But we have to remember also that that's a very advantageous thing to be in, because not only do you get Social Security, in America you also get that kind of disability added to what would otherwise be a much lower amount of money. In Australia you can't get disability and a pension. There you get one or the other. It's either in name or in amount. The only difference is that if you are granted a one-time lump sum payment, where you then choose no longer to benefit by some of the benefits of being a disabled person, you then have a lump sum that you can maybe use to buy a house or maybe live in a better lifestyle. But that again is the choice of the person who is disabled. So there are many reasons why many of us have more money than we can maybe imagine. But we also have to remember that the majority of people, and I say the majority, are struggling here in the Philippines, whether they're classified as middle class, lower middle class, or whatever class you want to level them at. Life can be difficult for a Filipino or a Filipina. And Filipinos, particularly, because that's who we're looking for, a beautiful Filipino. They're also not sitting there waiting for the grass to grow around their feet. They're resourceful. They'll come up with all kinds of different ways that may assist them in getting a more regular income. Many of them have many more than just one sideline, and each of those sidelines as a whole generally help to support their lifestyle here in the Philippines. So I think we need to be less judgmental on those that have less than ourselves, but we also need to remember that we don't need to flaunt our excesses. We don't need to rub it in the faces of your neighbours how wealthy we are. You know, we all love to have the trinkets that wealth brings, but showing your neighbour when the TV arrives, it's in a 108-inch TV screen, LG or whatever, it's maybe not a good idea. Maybe it's better to have the truck arrive and dispose of or unwrap the item out of sight of your neighbours. Don't advertise by having your curtains open in your lounge so that everybody can see you have a small home cinema, because likewise you then make yourself a target for those unscrupulous in any community to maybe target your home. Maybe they can't walk away with the TV set so easily, but they certainly can hold you hostage and maybe suggest that you go to the bank with them and make a hefty withdrawal. These things happen on a regular basis here in the Philippines, as they do anywhere else. Home invasion, carjacking, all these things are part and parcel of any community anywhere in the world, unfortunately, now in 2025. So it's always much better to be more low-key, to be seen at the market doing normal shopping, to be maybe going 2 or 3 times a week rather than one big massive amount you load into the car. Because for them, they carry a few bags, and maybe you carrying half a dozen bags and a small porter following you, delivering to the back of your vehicle, doesn't really make you low-key. You know, you will always have your regular meat vendor, your regular vegetable vendor, and you may well spend 2,000-3,000 at a time with them. But for them who are around you, you're a big spender. So try and keep things more low-key. Maybe do more visits to the market. You get fresher food, but you also don't draw attention that you're loading up the car to the gunnels. So also the idea that giving people money is not a good idea. Maybe now and again, popping around when you know somebody's living hard, a half a bag of rice maybe, a 10-kilo bag or a 5-kilo bag is gratefully received by them. But point out to them when you do it, it's just now, it's not every week, it's not every month. It's just you're helping them for this moment. It's a blessing for the family, because you recognize everyone needs a helping hand now and again. And we, of course, are in that position where we can do it. And don't let your wife make you feel bad about having done so, because sometimes they get a little bit envious that you're doing that. They think, from their perspective, that you're starting a trend which isn't necessarily your intention. And in many cases, it hopefully won't be something that becomes a regular event. So if you like my thought for the day, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Please give us thumbs up, because it brings people back to the channel. It tells the algorithm that I have a loyal following. So You have a great day, and I'll speak with you again soon. Bye now.